Today I'm going to be reviewing the ThinkPad Helix 2. This is a top-of-the-line configuration that has the 1.2 GHz M5Y71 processor, 8 gigs of RAM, and a 256 gig SSD, as well as the UltraBook Pro keyboard with Digitizer. Next to it, I have my current daily driver ThinkPad, the X240S, that I've upgraded to the X250 trackpad. So let's see how the two compare, and can the Helix 2 take over as my daily driver. Now I'm already cheating here because I've opened the box, but just bear with me and let's pretend I didn't, and we'll go through it as if it was new. Trying to do this one-handed kind of sucks. We'll just push all that aside. Take off this protective foam. Continue to remove protective foam. We'll deal with that later. And now we're ready to open the box. And what do we have? Well, we have the tablet, obviously. And that protective security sticker thing Lenovo likes to use. A piece of foam. Just toss that over. Got the UltraBook Pro keyboard, protected by another piece of foam. We'll just open that guy and take a look at it. Sorry, this is my first YouTube video, so I don't have camera mounts and other fancy things some of you might have, but the point will be made. Alright, so we've got the UltraBook Pro keyboard. And before we get into the tablet itself, I just want to point out that the UltraBook Pro keyboard, while it's meant for an 11.6-inch tablet, has the exact same size keyboard and trackpad as the X240 series. So if you're coming from an X240 and you are okay with that keyboard, even though it is slightly smaller than, say, on a T440S or T450S, you're going to be right at home here because the keys are exactly the same size and the trackpad is exactly the same size. Let's continue. What else do we got in this box? Another layer of stuff. We've got our Windows 8.1 getting started guides that nobody reads because nobody needs. And little power cable and the adapter. And the adapter's kind of interesting because Lenovo had to go and change this again. It's still a little yellow rectangle, but now it is a smaller yellow rectangle, kind of bearing a similarity to micro USB or USB-C, but it's neither of those. It's a proprietary Lenovo standard that I'm assuming they'll replace with USB-C in the Helix 3. Next we've got this cheap piece of crap. This is your pen clip for the UltraBook Pro keyboard. The UltraBook Pro does not have a silo for the pen. And then we've got the stylus itself. Pretty standard stylus, but much better than the one on the Yoga 12 that I've seen. Got only a little bit of weight to it. It's not too heavy. Got your eraser button, got your right click, and your Wacom tip. Alrighty. Looking at the dock, you see it's got this hinge. The hinge can be moved with your hand, but not easily. It's definitely got a bit of resistance to it, which I think I like. That gives it a feeling of strength. I'm going to take the tablet and we're going to put this all together. Now, a thing to note here, the tablet weighs 1.7 pounds. It's not exactly the lightest thing in the world, and the dock weighs about 2 pounds. So together we're looking at a fairly heavy package of about 3.7 pounds. My old ThinkPad here sits at about 2.7, and it has a bigger screen, although it's not touch, so that is something to consider. Alright. Fingerprint reader is on the back. It actually does a fairly nice job. Although I don't even get Lenovo's like fingerprint manager software anymore. It looks like now they're just entirely leaving it to Windows 8's fingerprint reader software. You got 1080p. This came with some level of scaling that I've already disabled because I like my text small so that I can see a lot of it. Bezels are a little chunky. Definitely when comparing to my old ThinkPad, which I would also say has slightly chunky bezels. They're a lot bigger, especially down here. I would say that's about 2 inches, 2 1/4. Not exactly svelte. Laptop definitely feels dense in the hand. Another thing, obviously, you're probably noticing reflections. The Helix 2 has a glossy screen. That's a big minus in my book. The X240S has a nice matte LCD. They're both 1080p, they're both really sharp. The Helix has a lot higher brightness. This isn't even on its max setting. If I go to its max brightness, it's retina burning bright. The X240S can get pretty bright, but not in the same league. I think this is a 275 nit, and this is like 400 nit according to Lenovo. So definitely you're going to see more brightness on the Helix. The brightness is definitely needed to counteract reflections because it's a glossy mofo. So how's this dock work thing? Well, you've got this button here that you can press and then rip the tablet off. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, which again, I'm not a big opponent of because I want things to be sturdy. But I'm going to temporarily put the camera down for a second. Pull it off. Now Lenovo thinks that for some reason you might want to put the tablet on backwards. I have no idea why anybody would want to do this. They say it's called presentation mode, but frankly, how can you present anything on an 11-inch screen to a conference room? I find that to be difficult. You can't really draw on it with the pen this way because even though it doesn't fall, it's got a bit of a wobble, as you can see. I tried this with the pen, and the screen wobbles a bit. So, not a lot of wobble, but just enough to make it useless in that mode. They also have the stupid tent mode where you could put it upside down. Again, not sure why you would ever want to do this, but if you did, the tablet does allow this, and the hinge is fairly strong. I just, again, don't really see the point. And actually, I'm surprised it didn't rotate. I probably have the screen lock on. Yeah, I had the screen lock on. If you don't have the screen lock on, it is smart enough to rotate this way. Like I said, this works, but I just don't see the point. Okay, going back to standard desktop mode, because that's the mode I use it in most of the time. Resolution's high, but not unusable. I'd have preferred 1610 or something of that nature, because when you take it as a tablet and try to put it in portrait mode, it definitely feels a bit narrow and tall. Loading up Visual Studio, for those of you who are coders, I mean, this isn't exactly a super complicated program that I'm building. It's just a program that synchronizes with an SFTP server and downloads some files. Obviously, this kind of application runs fine. I'm fairly impressed with how well Visual Studio runs on here. I mean, I knew the Core M was going to be a degradation in speed. I had no idea exactly what that means. But I honestly don't really notice a performance difference, although I'm sure if I benchmarked it, it would come in a lot lower than this guy who's running an i7. But, you know, Task Manager seems to think that he's consistently running at about 1.9 gigahertz. Well, not right this second. Right this second it actually says it's a little under 1, but that's just because it is very efficient. The max speed is 1.4, not sure why when Intel says it's 1.2, but then again, apparently this processor supports a variable TDP, which basically means you can give it more than 4.5 watts and it will run faster, or you can give it less than 4.5 watts and it'll run slower. Apple, for example, slightly overclocks their Core M's by giving it more TDP. That's why they sell the 5Y71 as a 1.3 gigahertz processor, but it's a 1.2 gigahertz processor, you know, as designed. Not sure what else you want. Track point works great. I've never used a trackpad. It's one of the first things I disable, so I can't give you a good review on the trackpad, but I can say it feels exactly the same as it did on the X240S, in that it only clicks on the bottom and not in the middle. So I think that's good. Not sure. Don't care. You've got your Windows button, and you can run all the Metro apps, and they're all touch-friendly. I haven't had a chance to upgrade this to Windows 10. It's definitely on my agenda, especially now that the new previews came out. Maybe they'll be better. So far, you know, at the price this machine costs, which is actually rather high, it's hard to recommend when it's... I mean, this was supposedly, I got it at an incredible discount at $1,210, and nobody else seems to be selling this configuration for less than $14, and I just think that for $1,200, you could do much better. My brother just bought the new X1 Carbon with the WQHD and a similar size RAM and SSD, and the i5 5300U, and he spent less, and basically, yeah, I mean, it's a great machine for what it is. It just, for the price, I just can't recommend it.